When you think about the idea of transformation, what comes to mind? It's a pretty deep concept, right? To not just change a little, but to fundamentally evolve. Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating approach that sees transformation not as some random accident, but as a deliberate act of design.
So let's start with this quote. This one sentence is really the foundation for everything we're about to discuss. It gets right to the heart of the matter. Unlike a lot of creatures in the natural world, our growth isn't just pre-programmed. It happens between people. It's a social thing. We don't do it alone.
Okay, so if we need other people to grow, how does that actually play out? Well, for most of us, maybe it's just a stroke of luck. You bump into the right mentor, or a friend says the right thing at the right time. But what if it didn't have to be chance? What if you could actually build a structure for it? That's the core idea here. It's the difference between hoping to find a path through the woods and actually engineering a bridge to get you to the other side. And that's exactly what this is all about. Creating an architecture for growth. The idea that if you really want to unlock potential, you need a plan. You need a framework. Think about it like this. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly is just, well, programmed. It's written into its DNA. It doesn't need a life coach to make it happen. But for us humans, it's totally different. Our potential isn't on autopilot. It needs to be activated, it needs to be guided, and that all happens through our interactions with others. So if we need this guidance, if we need this structure, who's the architect? Who's the guide? Well, this is exactly where the Yancha parenting coach comes into the picture. They're the ones who help build this architecture for transformation. And let's be really clear about what a parenting coach is in this system. This isn't just someone giving out tips and tricks. We're talking about a certified guide who uses specific, proven behavioral frameworks. And the goal is huge, helping a child reach their full potential by working on the absolute fundamentals, their beliefs, their mindset, their skills, and their values. So what does a coach actually do? Well, they'll break down that super important symbiotic relationship between a parent and child. They guide the whole family on how to use the Yancha approach, and they deliver what are called Yancha interventions. These are targeted activities designed to shift mindsets and build new skills. The whole focus is on finding and getting rid of those self-limiting beliefs, building up the positive, and ultimately empowering the parents to be the best guides they can be. And just as a quick aside, this isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's also presented as a real, viable career path. You can do this as a solopreneur or even build a whole business around this method. All right, so we've covered the what and the who. Now for the really good stuff, the how. What does this method actually look like when you put it into practice? This is the million-dollar question, right? It's one thing to talk about an architecture for growth, but what are the blueprints? What are the actual tools a coach uses to build it? Okay, the answer comes down to two core frameworks. Let's look at the first one. It's a pretty straightforward four-step loop. First, you observe. Let's say a coach sees a kid give up on a tough puzzle. Then you work to understand the belief behind that. Maybe the kid thinks, I'm just not smart enough for this. Next, the coach would engage, maybe by introducing a new way of thinking, like, hey, every time you make a mistake, your brain is actually growing stronger. Over time, doing this helps the child's whole mindset evolve. The second framework is all about collaboration. Let's take that classic parent and teenager argument over screen time. Instead of just butting heads, they'd start with understanding, really trying to see where the other person is coming from. Then they'd actually discuss real solutions, not just repeat their demands. From there, they could create a new rule that they both agree on, and through that process, the entire family dynamic can start to evolve. And what's really amazing is the scope of all this. These frameworks aren't just for little kids. They're designed to be used from the time a child is just 4 years old all the way through to young adulthood at 21. I mean, think about that. That's a huge, crucial chunk of a person's development. Now, I know what you might be thinking. With all this talk about frameworks and structure, does this mean it's some kind of one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter system? Well, actually, the goal is the complete opposite. And this is so important to get. The structure isn't a cage, it's a launch pad. The whole point of the Yancha method isn't to tell a kid what path to take or who they should become. It's about giving them the tools and the confidence to figure that out for themselves and then go build their own path. And that path gets built on the strongest foundation possible, the child's own unique strengths and interests. The entire process is about drawing out what's already there and helping it grow.
Which brings us to the payoff. What happens when this all works? When this architecture for growth is successfully built? What does this unleashed potential actually look like in the real world?
First, and this is probably the biggest one, it's about breaking down those barriers we all build in our own minds. You know, the little voice that says, I can't do that, or I'm not good enough. This whole process is about identifying and overcoming those self-limiting beliefs. Second, it's not just about getting rid of the negative stuff. It's about actively building on the positive. The focus is squarely on figuring out what a child's natural strengths and passions are, and then amplifying them.
And when you put it all together, what's the end result? It's a young person who is truly enabled to create their own path to accomplishment, to actually reach for their full potential. That's the whole point of this architecture.
So we end up right back where we started, with that one fundamental question. Is realizing our potential just a matter of luck, a roll of the dice? Or is it something we can consciously, deliberately, and lovingly construct? Well, the Yansha method makes a very strong case that it's something we can absolutely build by design.